And then if everyone could enter into the chat your name and the library you're from, that will help me with the attendance. I very much appreciate it. And I forgot to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Meredith McCarthy. I am the branch manager of the Arnold branch of the Jefferson County Library, and your circulation committee chair for Missouri Evergreen. Chat up so I don't follow. Great. Thank you for everyone for putting your info in the chat. It is much appreciated. So to go ahead and start the meeting, did we have anyone who wanted to share anything in the public comment section? Just for your knowledge, I did see that email chain going around about the issues with the Mala Courier and the Postal Service. So I did have that under other, but we could talk about it here too, depending on what you guys want to do. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and go forward. The first item on the agenda, there was a request from Neosho to change the global expiration date of the miners permission from 3 years to 1 year. They are the heaviest user of that miner profile group. And there is a list that I misplaced, and I was going to get another copy of from Shannon, but I haven't been able to do that yet. That lists all the libraries that have it. So the board did refer it back to the committee here to have a discussion if we needed further investigate, or if we could go ahead with that recommendation for them. So does anyone have thoughts?
It seems fairly weird that it was 3 years to begin with.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. Okay, well, hearing no objections, does somebody want to, from the committee, want to make a motion that we go ahead and approve this change?
So moved. Diane.
Oh, I'm in a meeting. It's okay.
Can I get a second from a committee member? Otherwise, I'll second it. I don't know if I can, but we'll do.
This is Belinda, and I'll second.
Great, thank you. And all in favor, you can say aye or put it in the chat.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. And so I'll mark that in the notes as taken care of. And then you put on the radar as well that Cass County uses the unique collection service. So they had put in a request to add a main profile permission group of collections in with where the profiles are for the different types of patrons. That was gone ahead and approved at the board meeting since it was adding something new and it wouldn't affect anybody else that existed. So what they're going to use it for is to change the patron's account when they are put into collections and make that be an automated process for them and have that as an indicator. So if other libraries do use unique, that is an option that would be available for them as well, but nothing anybody would be required to use. Does anybody have any questions about that? Doesn't look like. Okay, on to the big one. There has been some discussions going on in the higher levels of the Evergreen board and at the past membership meeting that some of you may be aware of, that there are some differences between member libraries for what is being billed as damaged versus what is being accepted as standard wear and tear. And in a lot of those situations, if it's a bill that the library does not feel comfortable passing on to the patrons, the library is having to eat that bill and creating some difficult circumstances. So the board has directed us as a committee to work on creating some detailed standards guidelines for billing for damage done to Missouri Evergreen items. They referenced a document that Mid-Continent Public Libraries, they believe has, where it would have some pictures of different examples of this is billable, this is wear and tear, and that kind of stuff to get everybody on the same page. 3 Evergreen being as amorphous and independent as we are, I know this is a ginormous tangle that we will have to deal with. Yeah, but I personally don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea to try and get people towards the same page with it. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts, and if you thought it would be effective to try and do this with the larger group, or if we should pull out a smaller group that could kind of task as a working group and report back.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track, having maybe 3 members of this committee work on that, contact other libraries. And I think in the membership meeting, somebody said they thought Kansas City Public Library has something visual like that too. It's hard enough for us in our own libraries to get everybody to agree what's a damaged item, much less staff at 57 libraries. So I hate to do it, because the more documentation you have, the more cumbersome something becomes. But it would probably be a good idea if we had adopted some standard that says, okay, there's some foxing on the edges. That's normal wear and tear. The spine is a little wobbly. That's normal wear and tear. If the book comes back and you can't even close it because it's been damp, it's been dropped in the bathtub, and so it's all like this, that's something somebody has to pay for. So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with Diane on that.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like the smaller working group would be the most effective, and they can report back and tap in people as needed to help with it. So then begs the question, anybody want to volunteer? I'm happy to help and be part of the working group or whatever.
I'll volunteer.
Rhonda, I would.
Is there another volunteer in addition to Belinda? I have multiple screens up, so I have a hard time.
Rhonda said yes.
Rhonda.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so if it's Belinda, Rhonda, and me for now, and we can tap in whoever else might need help. That sounds good. And then we can set up a time outside of this meeting to kind of get things rolling and get together for that. Awesome. And I did put the feeler out to Mid-Continent already to see what document they have, and I can hit up Kansas City as well. Somebody's got really bad background noise going, so if you can mute it when you're not talking, that'd be great. Okay, and then on the borrowing for outreach long-term borrowing, this was an issue that Diane brought up. So if you're cool with it, Diane, I'll relinquish the mic to you, and you can kind of share what your thoughts were there.
This is something else that's like the condition, what's damaged and what isn't. That was not something really that we needed to discuss when we were small members, had few members, but as it grows and grows, maybe we need to talk about how long is acceptable for items to be borrowed. I already said it, I'll say it again. I hate to create lots of policies because they're just more things to stumble over. However, how long is it acceptable for an item to be checked out to a patron or a book club, something like that? We know when things leave our building. Well, here at Scenic, we allow things to be, most things to be checked out for 2 weeks, renewed twice, that's 6 weeks. And of course, if somebody doesn't renew it till it's already overdue, that could be longer than that. So we all accept that as part of a consortium. What do we do with items that are being borrowed for outreach? Like we have a books by mail program. The patrons check things out for a month and they can renew them again for another month. So that's 8 weeks. And they don't go out the minute that they hit the door. So it can be longer than 8 weeks. We try to borrow things just from Scenic branches, but sometimes we borrow from outside of Scenic branches. Is that okay with everyone? If our books by mail patrons have something for 8-9 weeks? What about book clubs? We have a book club meeting here today. They're going to take home the book today that they're going to discuss a month from now. So that's a month checkout. But It also can be 2 or 3 weeks before the meeting that the books are sitting at the branch waiting for the meeting to start if we've requested them from other libraries. So that's another perhaps 2-month period. We never borrow things to put on displays. We have rotating displays that are usually up for a month. We don't borrow anything from other libraries for that. But what if other libraries want to borrow things for that? There you go. There's my introduction. So what do people think about this?
Yeah, me personally, I think borrowing for displays should be a no-no because your displays are to highlight your own collection, not necessarily what is there. And there's other ways to promote the Evergreen and the sharing. You can make the QR codes, you can make the cover or something with it too. But if it's something that's that of interest to your patrons, hopefully you have it or you have some kind of representation of it to alert them they can put it on hold, would be my thinking.
Yeah, I agree with the whole display situation. That was something that I know some of my branch staff had been doing for a little while, and I communicated with them, you know, that they really need to be using things at their local branch. Part of the issue, of course, being that if you put a hold on it and it comes in and you check it out to yourself, and it's not really in like a usable status when it's out on display, it's like checked out to a branch account or something. So that doesn't even make sense. In addition to it being not our item.
I'm not trying to pick on any one library at all, but and Belinda's on here from Poplar Bluff. You guys, it seems like, have one of the longer checkout periods. It's an initial 3 weeks, and then how many renewals?
It is 3 weeks with, if no one is waiting on it, if it hasn't been requested, it can automatically renew, and it's one renewal for 3 weeks.
Okay, so it's a total of 6 weeks if everybody does everything in a timely manner.
Yes.
Okay.
The timely manner may be where we have a grace period after that of 45 days where they don't get charged. It's not turned in as lost. So the 45 days may be where you're thinking that we've got an extra long period, but it is just the 6 weeks of checkout. That's if nobody's waiting.
I was thinking 3 weeks and 2 renewals for some reason. And I was thinking, you know, that takes it out to 9 weeks just for a patron to have a book plus transit times. You know, we're one of the ones that we borrow probably about 20 books a month for a book discussion group. And to allow for the courier, we have to request those plenty ahead of time and then hope that the patrons participating bring them back in a timely manner so we can have book discussion books tied up for at least 8 weeks where we've borrowed individual titles from different libraries.
My library is actually kind of an offender here. We are 3 weeks with 3 renewals, and that does seem a little long. And in my opinion, it actually gives the patron more time to forget it and forget to bring it back. So that would be something that I would be definitely willing to speak with my director about like shortening the length of time that we allow patrons to borrow stuff. If you guys think that we need to do that.
Cass County is the same. They have a 3-week checkout with 3 renewals as long as nobody has put that item on hold. So that would be a total of 12 weeks.
Yeah, and on the converse side, as a library that has way too many books and not enough shelves, I would rather stuff out there being enjoyed by somebody than being routed back to me for an arbitrary timeline with it too, and just to be able to say I have it in my building. That if it's at home with somebody and it's being used, that's value to me as well with it too. On the other end of the spectrum.
I think that was our initial thought process was we're a small building. Let's go ahead and let people have the books. And so we have space on the shelves, but it does also, create that other problem. So we're pretty flexible with it, and we just want to do kind of what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I don't think you're that far off the map from what a lot of other libraries are doing. And there's protocols in place in the system to get the materials back, and it's not going to renew if somebody's waiting for it and that kind of stuff. And if the person's going to be shady and keep it for forever, they're going to keep it for forever, regardless of whether there's a hold on it or not.
Yes.
And at some point,
But
they're
they-
going to be billed if they keep it forever, you know, so.
Exactly. So I think that may be a rabbit hole we don't want to go down just because there's protocols in place to already stop that. I think best practice wise, I think not using for displays is definitely something we can put out there for that. Book group, we use the Mid-Continent book kit service for ours, so we don't do them through Evergreen. So I can't speak to timing or whatever with that. What do you guys think about the book group thing? I think in the end, it's patron service, and generally those are not stuff that is like super duper bestseller, high demand stuff. It's usually like the older stuff that we all have 14 copies of anyway. But I just see what you guys thought. I'm coming from the perspective of a larger library, so I know that colors my thinking. So I don't want to speak for the whole.
Well, and maybe we don't have to discuss this at all, since I'm hearing that some libraries have 3 weeks with 2 renewals or 3 weeks with 4 renewals. So it's not going to be that much different from if that's 12 weeks and our books by mail is only 8 weeks. So maybe some of just the regular circulation policies are allowing individual patrons to have things for a very long time anyway. So maybe it's a non-starter. I know we had an issue with a new library that joined several years ago, that their staff could check things out for 6 months and renew them once or twice. And the executive board contacted that library and said, please don't allow your staff to check out books from other libraries for those kind of checkout periods. But maybe this is a non-issue.
And I did have a situation get brought to my attention of a staff member at a member library that had some Evergreen stuff out for an inappropriate length of time too. So I was able to deal with that through their sort contact on a case by case too. So maybe that those isolated situations we continue to address one-on-one. But yeah, I think like you said with the logic that if they're getting it on a regular basis at a similar amount of timing as the book club basis, then it's really moot maybe.
Maybe it is, and then just handle it on a case by case basis.
Yeah, and if you feel comfortable with that based on the discussion and that I can put out to the circuit large just a reminder that the best practice is not to use them for displays, and then just leave the rest of the things as is, and we'll roll with that, if that makes sense. Okay. And then that was a great discussion. The only other thing I had under other was just to put on people's radar, if it wasn't already, the email thread that was going around about the issues with the courier bags showing up in the postal service deliveries from July. And you guys are much more well-versed in the MALA reporting than I am. That's not something that I have to do as part of my duties. So I will let, if somebody else can chime in about the reporting aspects of it and what needs to be done for that.
No one else is speaking right now, so I thought it might be a good opportunity for me to bring it up because I spoke about it with my director just this morning. We're a small library. We've been in the consortium for going on 10 years, and I've been here that whole time. And so I was here whenever we made the transition to Henry, and saw a really steep decline in service, basically. We only get courier service 2 days a week. That's a perfect amount of time for our patrons, but we've been noticing we haven't been getting books through the mail, but our courier service is really spotty. Sometimes they don't show up. And when you're only getting deliveries 2 days a week, if they don't show up, then things really start to get backed up. And it's not our driver's fault. So, we can't really say too much to him about it at the time. But we are contacting MALA on a fairly regular basis about it. And I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that same issue where their drivers just sometimes aren't showing up.
And when you talk to somebody at MALA, what do they tell you?
My director is the only one who speaks with MALA, and I think they report it, or she reports it, and they say, okay, we'll make note of that. I don't know if there's any real deep discussion about what they'll do about it. I think it's just a matter of we report it to Mala, and then Mala is the one who contacts Henry Industries. Are we allowed to contact Henry directly and say, hey, we're having this issue, what's going on? Or is that like a big no-no? Because we haven't done it because we don't think we're supposed to.
No, I don't think you're supposed to. It's supposed to go through Jane and Linda. And I know Jane really wants things to work right. That's the director at Mala. She really, really wants things to go well. But I was talking to another library a couple of weeks ago that said that the Springfield hub is a mess, and that they keep being told, well, that their driver tells them, yeah, I don't take the oldest stuff. They fill my vehicle up with the stuff that's on the top. So here we're trying to reduce transit times. Oh, brother. And here we've got somebody reporting stuff in the mail.
Yeah, in the chat that there's 14 bags in the mail and reported to Linda, and the patron's been waiting for stuff for 2 months. Yeah, it's not good.
And it doesn't get better.
When is the contract up with Henry? Or when can they renegotiate this?
Yeah, the state library does that contract. So those are the people. Oh gosh, I'm going to be a rabble rouser here. You know, we're supposed to report to Mala. It might not be a bad idea if some of us are contacting the state library to say, just want to make sure you know that we are not happy.
So Diane, who at the state library do you think, because I agree, if it's not working and they're part of that negotiation process, I do think that they need to know that something is wrong. So who would be the contact person there?
Well, Robin Westfall is the state librarian.
Mm-hmm.
You could contact her. She's got a few people working in her office.
Yeah, and it's definitely been noted in the board discussions and the higher level ones that there are issues, and they are aware that there are issues. But like Diane said, the more feedback they have is the more ammunition they have for when it does come up for contract and say, hey, these are the issues that we're having. If this can't be rectified, then we're not working with you, and moving on with it too. And if they don't have that feedback, then things might get rubber stamped along the way.
Yeah, and if Marshall is having this problem over and over again, we only got 1 day of delivery this week. And the next week, we only got 1 day of delivery this week. That's not acceptable.
No, and definitely something that we want to stay on top of and bring forward in this discussion here that I can take forward and everything with it too. Because I mean, Missouri Evergreen technically is a brand, and this negatively impacts our brand and our effectiveness. And then word gets out of, like, if I'm an Evergreen member, but I can't be relied upon to get the stuff for my patrons, and that becomes a negative feedback loop that we don't want to be a part of. Yeah, and I can bring forward too and just reiterate that the concerns are out there and find out if there's any better channels we should be going through than the Mala reporting that we're doing too, and then report back to the group too. Okay, did anybody else have anything they wanted to bring forward via the meeting here while we got everybody?
Is there time to just sort of quickly go over the circ permissions thing that Diane sent out, and then we can maybe come back next month with a little bit more to say about it?
Yeah, let me
or more understanding of it.
Sure, let me get it pulled up on my screen. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and get that pulled up, and then I'll mute my mic so Diane can talk.
The onboarding committee started talking about permissions, staff permissions, a couple meetings ago. And Nate Byrink at Trails came up with this beautiful spreadsheet putting all the permissions in one place. so that we can see line by line these zillions of permissions that staff can have. And then I took all of everything out that wasn't circulation or system administrator, so I could see side by side what circulation staff has permission to do. The onboarding committee is thinking about having, coming up with what our recommendation would be for new libraries to give their circulation staff permission to do. But even this morning, I was emailing Nate because I said this, I can see that everybody has permission to do delete copy, has a delete copy alert. You can see delete copy alert, but only catalogers and general staff, which is that first column, column B, have permission to delete copies. However, the staff that we have given permission to here at Scenic, permission of system administrator, they can delete items, but someone who has a circulation administrator permission cannot delete items. So even what's shown in your staff as their permissions is not really accurate to what they can really do. So it's a big, I don't know, mulligan stew, I guess. I've attended conference sessions about this, and it just would be nice if it were streamlined a little bit better. And if some of this stuff made really good sense. I'm not a cataloger. Maybe for a cataloger, delete MFHD record makes sense. And why would a general staff member be able to do that, but not a system administrator or a circulation administrator? I don't know. It's just kind of crazy stuff. So I think as a consortium, we're going to be trying to come up with something to recommend to new and existing libraries.
And I don't know how much of this is even a result of conscious choice, or if it's things that just changed with upgrades and things along the way with it too. I know some functionality we had, and then some functionality disappears after an upgrade and that kind of stuff too. And I don't know if most of this is even a conscious choice.
Yeah. A conscious choice. Reality, is it, how much of this is reality and how much is fantasy? There's an option for everything, which doesn't really give you permission to do everything. And I think that's what they said, was that used to give everything in the past, maybe when it was Evergreen 1.6 or something. If Nate's still here and he wants to add anything, jump right in.
Oh, I don't know if I have much to add, honestly. The permissions, from my understanding, are, like you said, they're kind of a mess. They're really complicated. From what I've read, it sounds like some of them existed at one time for a certain purpose, and maybe they're still in there, but they don't serve that same purpose any longer. Like we've talked about everything, which contains all the permissions up to a certain point. It's just really complicated, and some of it I honestly don't quite understand. Like you said this morning, we were having some issues with some permissions, like the mark item as damaged permission. I know that a lot of our staff members can do that, but nobody really has that checked.
Yes, and it's not even on this circulation spreadsheet because it wasn't a permission that any circulation type person or system administrator had permission to do. So when I took everything else out except the circ permissions, it wasn't even included in there. But everybody's marking things damaged.
Exactly. And so I feel like there's definitely just a gap in knowledge that we need to fill. And I think once we get past that little mountain there, we'll have a good handle on things and we'll be able to kind of sort out what needs to happen. But yeah, there's definitely a learning curve.
So maybe I just need to contact Equinox and point out some of these discrepancies and ask what's going on, or if this is an old list that they forgot to update. Oops.
Yeah, and am I correct though too that if there are issues that each library can independently adjust these or whatever too for locally, or all these are global?
So the permission groups themselves are set globally, so we can't modify what exists within a specific permission group, but on an individual user basis, you can add permissions. Now, if I'm a Circ admin user, no one can take away the generic Circ admin permissions from that user. You can add things, but you can't take away. So yeah, there are some permissions that are set at a staff level. So it's just like the highest up staff permission, just staff. And those things can't be taken off of any staff account because all staff users inherit that permission. So there are some things that you're just kind of, everyone has, and there are some things that you can add individually by account.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarity. I knew there was adjustments, but I wasn't 100% on how those are made. And like you guys said, this is complicated and makes my head hurt.
Yes, it does. And I know I never went in and gave everybody permission to mark items damaged. So that's got to be coming from somewhere out there.
So for the purposes of the committee here, Diane, do you think it works for you to do, like you said, to make that contact with Equinox and then just report back to us as things develop and fold in folks when you need help or whatever with it?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, and did anybody else have anything they wanted to bring forward? If not, I was going to look at my calendar to try and vaguely remember when the next meeting is. Somebody else have a better calendar in front of them for when our next one is? Mine is frozen up. Should be our
The 28th?
20th. Oh, yeah, mine finally loaded. The 28th of September is our Missouri Evergreen pre-conference. So do we want to move that, or can we consider that our meeting? Or whatever for the people that are going to be here?
Oh, are we doing that aren't we doing that Wednesday?
Is it Wednesday? Oh, you're right. Why do I have it on Tuesday?
Yes, because I think that's when the pre-conference was supposed to be, when it was going to be a 4-day conference.
You're right. My calendar is old. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we should be good then. Okay. So if we don't have anything further, I'll see you guys on September 28th at 11, and I'll get the minutes out in a timely fashion this time and get the recording going, and then report back on what I find out about the courier situation and contacts and the best way to provide the feedback there if there's any other channels available for us. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.